the pain that had nearly broken her heart. Ethan, too, felt something inside him thawing, something he hadn't dared feel since his wife died 3 winters ago. He remembered the night he buried her, how he promised never to open his heart again. The land had taken too much from him, his wife, his peace, his hope. But somehow, fate had dropped Clara into his arms on a night when he thought he'd lost everything. Maybe that was God's way of telling him it was time to live again. One evening, Clara sat by the fire, sewing a torn saddle blanket. Ethan came in quietly, dust from the stable still on his coat. "You've been busy," he said softly. She smiled, not looking up. "Can't sit still too long. Makes me remember things I'd rather forget." Ethan hesitated, then sat across from her. The firelight danced in his eyes. "You don't have to forget everything, Clara. Some memories make us who we are." She put down the needle and met his gaze. "And some memories make us afraid to love again." Silence filled the room. Outside, wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of rain. Ethan's heart pounded like it hadn't in years. "Maybe," he said finally, "love's not something we find again. Maybe it finds us, when we least expect it." Clara looked down, blinking away the tears that threatened to fall. "You don't know what I've done, Ethan. I ran from a man who said he loved me. I left everything behind." He leaned forward. "Then you did what you had to do to survive. That ain't weakness, Clara. That's courage." For a moment, her trembling hand brushed his, and the touch was enough to speak all the words they couldn't say aloud. Days turned into weeks. Clara started teaching Lily to read, and in return, Lily showed her how to ride a horse. The valley came alive again, wildflowers, soft rain, warm evenings filled with laughter. Yet somewhere deep inside, Clara knew her past wasn't done with her. One afternoon, as clouds gathered over the horizon, a rider appeared on the ridge, tall, dark-coated, with a cruel smirk. It was Marcus Hale, the man she'd once been promised to. His voice carried over the wind. "Well, well, look what the storm brought back to life." Ethan stepped out onto the porch, his hand resting on his revolver. "You lost something, stranger." Marcus sneered. "Not lost. Stolen. That woman belongs to me." Clara froze. The memories hit her like lightning, his threats, his fists, the night she ran. But before she could speak, Ethan stepped between them. "She belongs to no man," he said coldly. "Least of all you." Marcus laughed. "You think you can protect her? You're a farmer, not a fighter." Ethan's eyes hardened. "Try me." For a long moment, the only sound was the wind. Then Marcus spat on the ground and turned his horse. "This isn't over." He rode off into the storm, leaving a trail of dust and tension behind. That night, Clara cried quietly by the fire. Ethan sat beside her, his presence steady, protective. "He won't touch you again," he said softly. "Not while I'm breathing." She looked at him through her tears. "Why are you so kind to me, Ethan? You owe me nothing." He smiled faintly, his rough hand covering hers. "Because you brought life back to this home. Because my little girl laughs again. Because I forgot what hope felt like, until you came." The words broke something open inside her. She leaned into him, and for the first time, she didn't feel broken, she felt safe. Months passed. The seasons changed. Marcus never returned, and the valley bloomed like never before. Clara stayed. She worked the land beside Ethan, cooked for the ranch hands, taught Lily songs that echoed across the fields. Her laughter was now part of the wind, her gentleness woven into every corner of their life. One evening, the sun bled gold over the horizon. Ethan stood by the fence, watching Clara feed the horses. He took a deep breath, then called out, "Clara." She turned, brushing hair from her face. "Yes." He stepped closer, holding something in his hand, a small, simple silver ring. "This belonged to my wife," he said quietly. "But she once told me something before she passed. She said, 'Don't let grief steal your tomorrows.'" Clara's eyes widened as tears filled them. "Ethan, He shook his head gently. "You don't owe me an answer today. But I need you to know. I don't want to spend another winter without you." The world went silent, even the wind seemed to pause. Then Clara took a step forward, her hand trembling as she reached for his. "Ethan, you already gave me a new life. And I don't ever want to leave it." He smiled, that rare, quiet smile that said more than words ever could, and slipped the ring onto her finger. Behind them, Lily cheered, clapping her small hands. "Does that mean I get a new mama?" Clara laughed through her tears and knelt beside her. "Yes, sweetheart. You do." And as snow began to fall once more, soft, peaceful, and pure, Ethan wrapped his arms around them both. The storm that once brought a dying bride into his world had now given him everything he'd lost: love, family, and home. Sometimes, the harshest winters lead to the warmest springs. First time, they didn't matter as much. Something about that man, that flight, that small moment of humanity, had left her speechless. And she didn't even know his last name. 2 weeks passed since that red-eye flight, yet Elena Carter couldn't shake off that stranger from her mind. Daniel Brooks. Even his name echoed in her thoughts like a melody she didn't know she needed. Every day in her glass-walled office, surrounded by luxury and pressure, she caught herself thinking of him, the quiet man with kind eyes, who didn't care who she was. The way he'd spoken about his daughter, the calm in his voice, the honesty in his gaze, it haunted her in a way no boardroom ever could. One night, she sat by her penthouse window, city lights flickering below, her reflection staring back at her. She whispered softly, "Why can't I forget him?" She didn't have an answer. Maybe because, for the first time, someone had seen Elena the woman, not Elena the CEO. The next morning, she headed to a charity event her company sponsored every year, Hearts of Tomorrow, an initiative supporting underprivileged children who needed medical care. Elena usually attended only for press coverage. But this time, something felt different. As she walked through the hospital's pediatric wing, she paused at a small laughter-filled room decorated with colorful balloons. Her assistant whispered, "That's the new wing we funded. They've just reopened after renovations." Elena nodded distractedly, until she heard a familiar laugh. Her heart stopped. Inside the room, wearing the same gray hoodie, was Daniel. He was helping a little girl paint stars on the wall, a little girl with blonde curls and a bright smile. The same one from the photo on the plane. "Lila," he said gently, "you missed a spot there." She giggled. "Daddy, you missed too." Elena froze in the doorway, her heart racing. He hadn't seen her yet. She took a step forward, almost afraid to believe it was real. When Daniel finally turned, his eyes widened in shock. "Elena." They stared at each other, 1,000 unspoken words hanging between them. She smiled softly. "I thought I'd never see you again." He laughed nervously, scratching the back of his neck. "Yeah, life's got funny ways of crossing paths." Elena knelt down to Lila's level. "Hi there, I'm Elena." Lila grinned shyly. "Are you Daddy's airplane friend?" Daniel blushed. "Lila." But Elena laughed warmly. "I guess I am." They talked. Lila showed Elena her drawing, a big heart with 3 stick figures, herself, her dad, and a lady with long hair. Elena felt a lump in her throat. After an hour, Daniel walked her out into the hallway. "She's amazing," Elena said softly. "She's my whole world," Daniel replied. There was a pause, deep and heavy. Elena looked at him. "Why didn't you tell me you were here?" He smiled faintly. "Because I didn't think I'd see you again. You belong up there, boardrooms, headlines, suits. I'm just a single dad trying to pay hospital bills." Something inside her broke. "You think that matters to me?" she whispered. He looked down. "It should." "No," she said firmly, stepping closer. "It shouldn't." For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them was electric, the same quiet honesty that started between 2 strangers at 30,000 feet. Then, Daniel sighed. "She's almost recovered. Once she's discharged, I'll take her home. I've been saving every penny for her therapy. It's been tough, but she's worth it." Elena's eyes softened. "You're a good man, Daniel." He chuckled. "Trying my best." Before she could stop herself, she asked, "Can I help?" He frowned. "Help? I mean..." Novacore's foundation funds childcare programs. I could make sure Lila gets everything she needs. Her surgery, therapy, even school. He shook his head gently. I can't take that. I don't want charity. It's not charity, Elena said quietly. It's gratitude. You reminded me what humanity feels like. You reminded me what matters. Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slightly. All right. For Lila. For weeks after, Elena visited often, sometimes with toys, sometimes with coffee, sometimes just to talk. She saw the way Daniel read bedtime stories, the way Lila looked at him like he hung the moon. And she realized something powerful: this was what love looked like. Not power. Not ambition. But care. Slowly, laughter returned to Elena's life, laughter that didn't come from victory, but from belonging. One evening, as the sun dipped beyond the city skyline, Elena joined them on the hospital rooftop. Lila was chasing bubbles in the wind, her giggles echoing like music. Daniel stood beside Elena, quiet and thoughtful. She's strong, Elena said softly. She gets it from her mother, Daniel murmured. She passed when Lila was born. Elena's eyes filled with sympathy. I'm sorry. He shrugged gently. Life gives and takes. But sometimes, it gives back in unexpected ways. She turned to him. Like that flight. He smiled. Yeah. Like that flight. Silence again, comfortable this time. As the wind brushed through their hair, Elena reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. Daniel, she whispered, you said you build memories for your daughter. Maybe, we can build new ones together. He looked at her, surprised, then moved. His voice dropped low. You mean that? She nodded. Completely. Lila ran up then, hugging both of them around the legs, her laughter bright as the sky. Daniel and Elena looked at each other and smiled, a real smile, the kind that heals.